Good morning, all you wonderful RV travelers, and welcome to RV Coffee Talk. Millie Mac Willie here, your two-dimensional gal. I'm as phony as they come, pure artificial intelligence. But I sure do look pretty. Now, here's my boss, the man who enlightens the world with his wisdom and who puts words in my mouth, Chuck Woodbury, with today's show.
Well, that wasn't Chuck Woodbury. That was Roger Marble, our guest today. And thank you, Millie. We have 5 people on. Boy, I tell you, we're a big crowd today. We can all squeeze in a phone booth, I think. So let's get everybody up here. I do want to say before we start, how come we only have 3 people? We must have not, who's out there? We must not have, maybe we didn't put the right link in the newsletter today, because that's very unusual. So we've got, here we go. We've got, there's Roger Marble. He's going to be our expert today. And then you see Dave Solberg there along with me. Dave's our tech expert. And Robert, good morning. Dave and Roger, can you see that comment up there?
Yep.
Yes, I see the comment now.
Good morning from Joliet, Illinois. Good morning, Robert.
Joliet. Hey, we're up to 7 people now. That's good. So this, I want to tell you that we have sort of unofficially got a sponsor now, and that is Soft Start RV. And this is the device that will allow you to run your air conditioner on a small generator, or run 2 air conditioners on 30 amps, or run one on only 20 amps. And they've been friends of ours for a long time. I know Dave speaks highly of them. I do. And so here we go with a, I wanted to show you this. They have a summer special, $70 off. And so if you want to take advantage of that, you would go right here. And that is the, and Dave, do you want to just say anything about Soft Start?
Yeah, we put one on a 2015 Thor that had Dometic air conditioners up on the top. We put it on both of them, and we did some testing. Initial startup before putting the Soft Start on would do about 45 amps, just this immediate spike. And every once in a while, it would trip a 30 amp breaker, and it does it fast enough that it doesn't normally trip everything, but you can't do 2 at a time. And so after the Soft Start, that thing only went up to about 14 to 15 amps on initial, spike startup. And it was very impressive. We put it on that thing, and the guys usually said it's so much quieter when it starts up. Before you would get that boom, and so they love it, and it's been a great product.
Anybody who gets one, if you have any problems, I stand behind it. I know the owners personally.
It's very easy to install. You don't have to cut any wires. They have a technisshan that will walk through on the phone with you if you don't feel, you got the right wiring diagram or anything. You just have to take off some leads and reattach them with that Soft Start in there. So it's simple to do.
Yeah. Everybody out there, would you, we're up to 15. Would you introduce yourselves?
We got Ken over here that came in from Ontario, Canada. Thanks for joining us, Ken.
Yeah.
And we'd like to thank you, Canadians, for bringing us the smoke. We have it in Iowa, so that way we don't have to look at the flat scenery.
One year we had it really bad here in Seattle, but it's been really nice this year. But boy, it's sure been tough on the east, and then of course all the weather right now. They're saying today that Death Valley could hit 130 degrees. I was there once when it was 122, and I've got a picture somewhere, and yeah, here's somebody's hoping to install 2 ACs.
Yep.
Yeah, they have the soft starts we've been selling. They've been selling a lot, obviously because of the heat. Everybody needs it really, what a difference it makes to have at least one air conditioner running if you're even hooked up to just you pull into someone's driveway and you're hooked into 20 amp. That's a big deal.
So Lloyd's up in my neck of the woods. I'm up in central Iowa. We're right on I-35, straight 20 miles south of the Minnesota border. So you're down in southeast, so probably Dubuque or somewhere down in that area. And then we've got Andre is from Brimfield, Massachusetts. And
where is Brimfield?
That is a very long motorhome. If he's from both Brimfield and Northport, Florida,
it's a stretch.
That is a stretch. All right, we got a first question
for Roger.
Technical question, Roger.
Tireman9@gmail.com. He has verified the email. So it's tireman9@gmail.com.
Okay. And then here is a question. 2016 Tiffin, original tires, 25,000 miles. Good tread, no crack. Dealer where I purchased says the tires are good and I should get many more miles. And that's kind of changed a little bit over the years. The tire manufacturers have had 7 years, then 10 years, and kind of. So what's the latest, Roger?
Okay. The max is 10 years, period. No matter what you can see, no matter the inspection, mount, dismount, doesn't make any difference. 10 years max. That's a hard line. Now, for motorhomes, they can generally get 5, 7, 8 years. They ought to be inspected by a dealer for that brand tire. And inspection does not mean walk around, yep, tread's good, you're good. That's not an inspection. I have a post detailed. Get down on your hands and knees, flashlight, feel the entire surface of the tire for bumps and lumps. The inspection for RV towables, that's trailers and fifth wheels, is the same. Down on your hands and knees, inside, outside, feel 100% of all surfaces of the tire for lumps or bumps. There's also a free spin inspection that trailers can do. I have a video on my blog actually showing a friend now that discovered his tires had failed. They hadn't come apart, but the internal structure had failed. And basically it's get the tire unloaded so you can spin the tire around and you will see radial runout or side runout. If you see anything like that, the tire has separated internally the structure. And it could come apart on the highway in a mile, 10 miles, but it's going to come apart soon. Trailers are tough on their tires. 3 years, maybe 4. And the reason there's so much variation is temperature. If you're in Minneapolis or maybe even Iowa, it doesn't get as hot there as it does in Texas and Arizona. The temperature, just the ambient, will take a year or 2 out of the tire. So north tier, 3, 4, 5. South tier, 2 or 3 years life.
Yeah. Well, a classic example, we just did a video and we did a bearing pack on a 1997 Salem trailer, and the tires on it were about 8 years old. So whoever had it had changed the tires, and we took it to a local place to do this bearing video. And he said, since I'm a tire man, he looked and he saw that the tire was about 8 years old on it. And he says, I know some people say that 10 years, and the tire looked in perfect condition. Sidewall, tread, everything looked really good. But once he had it off and he turned it, you could see the spider cracking in between the actual tread.
Yep.
You couldn't see it by looking at it. And the sidewall looked perfect. They kept the cover on it, but boy, that that just enough of that little spider cracking in there. He said, and I've always said it's a lot cheaper to change a tire at the dealership than it is on the side of the road.
Yes. Yeah, you don't have body shop work involved if you're changing it at the dealership.
Well, have you seen somebody just emailed me a question about the new and I can't remember the name of it, tire guide or fender guard. It's a cage that goes inside a trailer wheel well.
I've seen video, and it was impressive. All I have to go on is the video, and it basically prevented damage to the RV trailer when they intentionally failed a tire. And tire came apart, flopping everything, but this cage prevented damage to the RV. So it's looks like it might really deliver what they say, but quite frankly, it's still cheaper to inspect the tires and replace them than waiting till you have a failure, because you still end up on the side of the road with a failed tire.
Yep, you're right. So we've got Robert here. It says, looked into soft start, but the way I use my RV, I don't see the cost benefit. I don't remote camp when I plug in at home, and I don't run the AC. Well, if you don't run the AC, that's one thing. But, normally when people plug in at home, they plug into their garage. And, they think, well, I'm not running the roof air conditioner. I'm just running the refrigerator. Well, no, you're also running the converter that's going to draw amps to charge the battery. It's just naturally going to do 13.2, even if the batteries are up. You got a 20 amp circuit in your garage. It's very easy to go over that with anything else coming on. And the big thing is that 20 amp service is probably ganged to other plugs in the garage. And you may have a freezer or refrigerator or air compressor in there. So, I think it's a very low price to put in if you're going to do 30 amps at a campground or if you're going to do 20 amps at home. But one of the things I tell people is get a dedicated outlet for your RV. If you're going to plug in at home, get a dedicated, at least a 20 amp, but more likely a 30 if you're going to run your roof air conditioner. But, again, everybody's different. Some people say they're not going to run their roof air conditioners. Then all of a sudden, guess what? The cord's been overheated because one time they did. But anyway, so Robert's got a couple other questions, and we're not going to go too far into this, but he brings up there is no RV tech certifying body, for example, SAE. And I would say, now, Roger, you have been involved with the RV Technical Institute through RVIA, is that correct?
Only in communication. I haven't given or taken any of their courses. No, I did some training with DOT a few years ago, but not RVIA.
Well, and I got to say that, I think the RV Technical Institute is the only certified, accredited training program that's out there. And they're really trying hard to get new people in because, right now, you think about it, Roger and Chuck, you and I, we all kind of tinkered with cars when we grew up, right? We had cars you could tinker with. You can't anymore. So you don't see a lot of young people going into the mechanic industry. And if they do, it's diesel because that's where the money's at. And, the RV industry does this so much that it's hard to get technicians in there. But, RVIA, I know, has worked hard with all the OEMs, with the original equipment manufacturers to get the certifications for the air conditionings, the electrical, the plumbing, that type of stuff. And, I think that is a good course. Now, there is and Robert brings it up here. We're going to just touch on this briefly. But there's an organization down in Texas that has the National RV Training Academy. They have the inspectors. They do an inspectors thing. And I guess it's all run by the same group down there. But one of the things I have to say, at least it's a step in the right direction. They're trying to educate owners, and they are working with Lippert and Dometic and some of the others to, make sure the information is good. I still go back to RVTI as the, the place to get technicians trained. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it seems like a good idea. I will give RVIA a plug in that a few years ago, unlike DOT, RVIA mandated if you want to put their sticker on the side of your RV and sell it, you have to comply with their guidelines. And for their tires, they increased the inflation load capacity of the tires on RVs to give at least a 10% margin. Before that, there was zero margin between what the tire could carry and what the RV could weigh. So that was definitely a step in the right direction.
Okay. So here is a question, and I'm going to bring up the slide for you. If I can find on the date code.
Yep.
And here is the PSI. So I don't have a picture of the date code, but go ahead and talk about that.
Okay, the date code. One, all tires have serial numbers, if you will, on both sides of the tire. The date portion, however, is only on one side. The date is the last 4 digits, both week and year, in 2-digit code. It is only on one side of the tire, and this has to do with the way tires are manufactured. A tire is assembled. It's put in a large press. Now, this press is, 15, 20 feet high, and the tire goes in and a clamshell closes, and the tire is pressurized and heated and cooked and cured. But once a week, the date code needs to be changed. It's changed on Sundays. Somebody has to go in physically and change the little aluminum slug in the mold. It is a safety issue because you don't want a man having to stand inside of a press that's 200 and something degrees and working inside that press. So you can, on the bottom, you can just reach in, remove the old plug, put the new plug in, and you're good to go. You can't get to the top half of the mold. So it's safety in manufacturing. The date portion is only on one side, but you only need to record that information once. And I suggest to people, hey, a $5 bill and a 12-year-old and a flashlight, one time, Saturday afternoon, have them crawl around underneath your RV, read the date code to you, write it down, or take a picture with your phone, and you're good to go.
And I did find a date code in one of my slides, and there it is.
Yep.
This is an old one.
Right, but the little plug, the last 4 numbers, has to physically be changed in a mold that is a big chunk of aluminum. I mean, think about how big a mold you have to have a tire inside of it. And that mold is 200 degrees. People have been injured messing around inside molds. And so basically the safety regulations became, nope, we're just going to change the date code in the bottom half because you don't have to stand inside the mold to change the date code on the bottom side.
Yep. And so this one, I was searching for this, but did you explain what each one of the numbers is, as far as month and
4 digits? The first 2 are the week, and the last 2 are the year.
Yep. So this one is a 28. So that'd be the 28th week.
28th week.
And 14.
Right. You can look at the calendar and work out the 28th Sunday. Little fun fact, you can have a 53 because some years there are 53 Sundays. And but yeah, basically the first 2 are the week of the year, and the last 2 are the last 2 digits in the year. So if you were doing something today or this last few weeks, obviously the year would be 23, and the week we would be at about 27, 28, whatever this week is.
Yep. So here's another, Robert.
Yep.
the duals, that is a challenge with duals getting, the date code and if you want to do the tire pressure monitor systems.
One thing, when you're buying new tires, the full DOT should be recorded for every tire on your sales slip, and keep the sales slip. Some tire companies have warranties based on, year of manufacture or year of sale. But if you don't have the sales slip, you can't make a warranty claim without the sales slip. So the sales slip should have the full DOT serial for each and every tire, 4, 6, however many tires you have on your RV.
Yep. Well, and I think, and that brings up a good point too, that I tell everybody at the seminars and the shows that I do, is when you buy a new or used RV, what you want to do is take out and get a sheet of paper. There are some places that have serial number forms. Write down the serial number of every one of your appliances, the make, the model, the year, the serial number, to the refrigerator, the air conditioners, all that kind of stuff. When you're doing the deal and you're getting started, and putting the tire code on it would be just the same, because then you don't
Right.
have to crawl up on the roof or anywhere, because everybody asks. Anytime I get a question, if I go to Dometic, I go to anybody, Eric Sell, I'm going to get what's the make, what's the model, and what's the serial number. And they won't even talk to you most times until you have that. So that
and if you're buying from a dealer, tell the dealer to go under and get the numbers for you.
Exactly. I know at Winnebago, in the owner's packet, one of the first sheets in there was this form that just said roof air conditioner and refrigerator, the options that you have in there. And then if you add anything, you could put that, and the dealer could put it down on the bottom of it as well. So that stuff is really important to get that. So let's see. We got Ken here, says I always insist on the date code. So let me bring up another slide here for you, Roger, and have you talk about how do you find proper air pressure?
Okay, the proper air pressure is, if you don't have actual weight on your RV, you have a certification label, and I know you have a picture of that later, but you have a certification label that tells you, that's right, on the side of your RV, if it's a towable, it is on the driver's side, outside, front quarter of the RV. And that will tell you, the sticker with the yellow down at the bottom, the tire size and the cold tire inflation. Cold does not mean you have to go in a refrigerator. Cold only means not warmed up from being in the sun or driven in the previous 2 hours. The upper label will give you the gross axle weight reading, Gower, gross axle weight rating. You should never have a weight higher than that if you go to a CAT scale. And that you can get at CAT scales. Excellent, thank you. Each one of those black lines indicates a separate weighing pad. You do have to pay attention when you drive on it with a trailer and your pickup truck, which axle is on which pad, and you sometimes may even have to get 2 readings, because you won't be able to line up the 2 axles on your pickup, and the 2 axles on your trailer may not match up exactly, but CAT will give you the second reading for free. So get the reading. You can ask for a reweigh, and they'll give you the reading. Then you have to do a little bit of work. Be sure you get the axle, which axle is which, but never, ever exceed Gower for your axles. And with that weight, you can then consult load inflation tables, and then that'll tell you the minimum inflation needed to support that load. Alternately, as long as you're under Gower, use the inflation number on the label of the RV, not on the sidewall of the tire. Tire companies do not know where that tire is going. So in this particular example, thank you, the highest level of load for that tire will be achieved when that tire is inflated to 110 psi. That doesn't mean that that tire can never exceed that temperature, that pressure. So your TPM may read 115 or 120. That's okay when it's hot running down the road. But the tire should never be loaded more than the Gower numbers. And the inflation on the sticker, the certification label, will allow you to be under Gower.
Okay. And just to clarify, when he says Gower, he's saying gross axle weight rating, GAWR. That's something that maybe some of the viewers didn't hear in before that. But also, just to elaborate a little bit on this. Now, I have a pickup that's got I don't remember what the size tires are, but on the sidewall it says inflate to 50 psi. Now, that's 50 psi at maximum load, like you said, gross axle weight rating. I don't ever run at gross axle weight rating. I run, I think, I won't even say the numbers, but, unless I have a back end full of dirt, if I put 45 or 50 psi in there, that truck runs like Fred Flintstone's car going down the road. Boom, 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 boom. And I have very little tread on because it's kind of ballooned up now. So I run that thing right at about 35 psi. And I've weighed it, and that's something too. Talk a little bit about the tire manufacturer's recommended pressure that, for the bigger units. Like this, you would never run this at 110 psi if you weren't at complete maximum weight, right?
That's correct. That's correct. You have the certification label. All vehicles have a certification label. The picture he showed is what you'd find on an RV towable, trailer or fifth wheel. If you have a motorhome, like your car, you have a sticker just like that little yellow one at the bottom on your door jamb, the driver's door jamb, your left hand. If you have a Class A motorhome, you don't have a door for the driver, but the sticker for you, the certification label, is somewhere near your left elbow. I've seen them on the floor. I've seen them on the sidewall, in next to the seat, but it's somewhere near your left elbow, and you should have that information written down, because that gives you the maximum load you can put on each axle, and it gives you the recommended inflation needed if you are running that load.
Yep.
So it's the inflation and load are tied together.
Yeah, and it's critical on the bigger units, fifth wheels,
yes,
and your motorized, because some of these have carrying capacity of, you could put 3,000 pounds or more in it. So that's going to really, affect your weight and your pressure.
One thing that a general tendency, if you have a towable, your tires, the inflation on your certification label, which is the inflation you must run for that load, is probably the same as the inflation number on the tires, because the RV company buys tires that will be enough to carry that load. They don't give you a bigger tire because that would cost them money.
Not a lot of wiggle room, as we
and
think.
there's some that are out there with only a few hundred pounds wiggle room, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Motorhomes, luckily, many of them have more room based on their loading and stuff like that. I know my Class C, I have almost I almost 30 psi wiggle room on the front end, because my Class C isn't that heavy on the front end.
Yep.
So,
well, talk a little bit about the Mercedes, because that, I run into this in weight carrying capacity, and not just tires, but you have a dry load, dry weight, and then you have a cargo carrying capacity that would put you at GAWR or GVWR, And some of these little Mercedes, you have 600 pounds of carrying capacity. That includes people getting in. You know,
Right.
so you put 2 people in that thing, it's pretty easy to overload that. And, you know,
Yep.
then
Class Bs, you're right. Class Bs are, you know, trying to put a, you know, 40 pounds in a 10-pound sack. It's real easy to be overloaded, and it's really important to get on a scale. And just because you looked up the numbers and said, oh, my thing is, you know, X thousand pounds dry, that means empty. That means no fluids. You cannot eyeball and get your how much that ladder or toolbox weighs and how much. In my seminars, I joke about guys carrying around a bowling ball collection, and we won't go down the path of how many shoes the co-driver can carry. That's an infinite number of shoes. But basically, yeah, overloading is because that results in excess heat, and it's heat that kills tires.
Yep. So here's a topic that just came in. I'm going to put this up here. She just joined us. She's got 9-year-old Michelin tires, and I know you touched on this before, but if you want to just give her a quick little tutorial.
Okay, 9 years old. Now, if that's based on how old the RV is, the tires could be 10 or 11 years old. You need to confirm the date, manufacturing date of the tires based on the DOT serial. Your tire dealer will be happy to do that, but the last 4 numbers, as you can see on this example, there's your serial, and it's 2814. So those tires were made in the 28th week of 2014. So when you say 9-year-old Michelin tires, I'm betting that that's because your RV is 9 years old, and the tires, it can take 6 months to 2 years between when the tire is made and when the RV is made.
Oh, I've seen them. Yeah. You know, because here's the example. The tire is manufactured by Michelin, Goodyear, whoever else. Then it's purchased by the chassis manufacturer. Now, this is in the motorized side of things. So it's purchased by the chassis manufacturer. That could be a year difference right there. The chassis then is they don't coincide with the RV manufacturer's year. So the chassis, I've seen 1 or 2 year old chassis being put onto a motorhome. So now it gets to the motorhome company, and then they build it, and then it goes to the dealership. So you could have, you know, quite a difference in years of those. So
you've got Dave right now, and Roger, you've got all those 22 models that are sitting on dealers' lots right now. So many of them. And so the 24 models are being are coming out right now. So how old are those tires?
Yeah, that's where you got to look at that DOT number.
If you ever drive through Elkhart on Interstate 90, you'll see thousands of what will become Class C motorhomes, but there's no RV on the chassis, and they're just sitting out there getting older. So I'm sorry to say, but I think you need to plan on buying new tires for this Tiffin.
Well, and that's a good example too, Roger, where, you know, you drive by Winnebago, which is in my neck of the woods here, and you see all these chassis sitting out, Class A's, Class C's, no cabs on them, you know, no boxes, like you said. Those tires are all being exposed to the elements for that entire time they're sitting out there as well. So talk to me, these guys, a little bit about weather checking and how do you protect the sidewalk? Because that's probably 50% of the tire failures, or, you know, are.
I recommend that tires be shielded from the sun, not because of UV, although that can lead to cracking and damage. But tires get hot. They're black in the sun. If you can keep them in the shade, they will run 20, 30, and 40 degrees cooler than if they're exposed to full sunshine. I have a post, and one of the posts on the RV travel, you can go up to the maintenance section and look at old posts. and I've got stuff showing the actual temperatures that I recorded when I did a test between in the shade and in the sun. And the tires in the sun were 36 degrees hotter. Cover them. Now, you can lay a sheet of plywood up against the side of your RV and it'll keep the sunlight off of it. Personally, I have white vinyl covers that I put over my tires. The Class A's, some of them have flat, the sidewall of the RV is flat and their tires are big. And I know the covers for those tires are heavy. There are a couple of manufacturers that make a screen that can be hung off the side of the RV. And a few years ago at Redmond, Oregon, actually, I did a test checking the temperature of tires behind this screen that it's like the screen you'd put on your windshield. You can see through it, but there's not, it stops the sun because the sun doesn't come in horizontal. And even a screen will keep the sun's heat off the tire. And the heat can kill a tire. It can cut the tire life in half. Let's see, the 80 PSI cold, increase to 90 temperatures. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that Class A reading. If it's 80 PSI cold, heating to 90, 95 is going to be normal when you're driving down the road. The tire temperature is going to get hotter. That's fine. And yeah, tire monitors are definitely good. Everybody, that should be your first purchase.
Roger, I got a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
What I said earlier, I think that it was going to be, it might be 130 in Death Valley today.
Yep.
And down in Arizona, it's up in the 100, 115, whatever. Should people drive are their tires going to be just as reliable at that temperature, or should they take precautions? What should they do?
It's going to be a shorter life. If you spend all your time in Phoenix and Flagstaff, in Phoenix and Tucson.
Yeah.
That's not the same as Flagstaff. So just saying Arizona, hot is hot. But if you're in the southern tier, your tire life is half of what it's going to be if you're up in Minnesota. That's just the reality, because the reality of temperature. Now, if you live in Death Valley, you might be lucky to get more than a year on your tires if you're spending the whole year there, especially if you don't shield them from the sunlight, because the sunlight's going to take that 130 ambient and crank it upwards to 150 to 160 Fahrenheit in the sun, which I don't have any data, but gut feel tells me, a year. So
I like to cover my tires when I'm driving in the heat.
Yeah, you would, Dave. You would.
Yeah, definitely.
By the way, you guys, I want you to see something here. I want to go back. You were talking about the weight of shoes. Here's a survey of 2,800 people from RV Travel, and I want you guys to see. Dave, where's the comment? We get that comment off of there.
I took it off.
That we have 1% of our audience. This is 2,800 people. They have 15 pairs of shoes or more. 3% have 9 pairs. Now, I think I probably have maybe 3 or less. But,
right, but the Dutch shoes weigh much more than the
if you're traveling around with
because they're wooden
shoes or boots with steel toes, then you're gonna have to be more careful. So I just want to set the record straight for you on.
Okay, yeah. Now the number of shoes and the number of bowling balls are a joke in my seminars, but yeah, everything has weight. Load up your RV to the maximum of what you expect to carry. I don't care if it's 12 jars of peanut butter or 5 cases of beer. It's all weight. with everything you ever expect to carry. You want the RV at its heaviest ever,
Yep.
water, whatever.
Yep.
Then you get on the scale.
Yep. You know, everybody's different. I use this in my seminar too, that when I go camping, I take paper plates, disposable stuff. I don't take anything. My folks, though, when you open up their pantry, they've got 6 months worth of food. They have enough ceramic plates for about 25 people and glasses and everything because they go on caravans. You know, they've gone to Alaska and they've gone to Gettysburg and for those of you that don't know, caravans were a club like the Winnebago Club does a sightseeing thing like to Alaska. And every day you go out and you sightsee, and then every night you come back to the campground and you go to somebody's RV and you drink. And when I was in college, that was wrong, I was told, and now it's okay. And I don't get, you know. So they entertain. They fill theirs up, you know. So they're going to put 2,500 pounds in because they're going for 6 weeks to 3 months at a time. So that's everybody's different, and it's hard to guess what you're going to put in. So you're right. You got to go weigh it.
I'd say the heaviest stuff that people carry are probably generally if you got a big toolkit, those tools are heavy.
Yep.
I mean, I can't think of too many other things you carry that are quite as heavy for their size. And you know, the other thing that amazes me is when you go look at these new RVs, they have this. They'll have this pass-through basement storage, and it'll be way in the back behind the rear tires. And I just wonder, this one you've got between the tires, but what about those ones where they have especially those really monstrously long Class Cs? I mean,
Yes.
that can't be good back there. First of all, just for, I mean, God, it's like seeing a little half-ton pickup filled with, dirt, and the front tires are barely getting any traction. And does that happen, or is it just what's the danger?
There's no question that some, and I would say Class Cs are probably potentially the worst. My Class C is 24 foot, which is fine for myself and my wife.
Yeah.
I have a fair amount of stuff in my basement, but I've done the 4-corner weight where I know the weight on each tire position. And I also go on a CAT scale once a year, just on general principles, to prevent weight creep, where, you know, I buy an extra this or, you know, another set of wrenches or whatever. The weight never goes down, never seems to go down. It always goes up. So just because you weighed it, you know, the week after you bought your RV, in the last 5 years, you probably have added 400 to 500 pounds of stuff inside your RV. Get on a scale at least every other year.
Yep.
But weight's the killer because weight turns into heat, and heat is what kills tires.
Well, and that's, you know, and I use this in my seminar. People have to realize that just because you have storage compartments clear across the whole bottom of this and that great big massive one in a fifth wheel in the front doesn't mean you can fill them all up. That, you know, that's the wow factor. Manufacturers usually look, wow, look at all that storage. And then you look at carrying capacity and axle weights, and it's like, oh, well, how come they make it that big then? Because you go, wow, that's
right.
Well, they make it that big because people think it's like a car. You can fill it up. And that's the little things about buying an RV that the manufacturers aren't going to tell you. They're going to show you all this space back there, but they're not going to say, hey, be careful what you put in here, you know? And people get those, and it just can't be good to have, you know, all that weight in the very back.
Well, inside the fifth wheels, you got the huge compartment in the front. So you start filling that up, and then you fill the bedroom up inside, you know, the weight, because just as important as the weight on the tires of your tow vehicle.
Right. Well. Something people don't realize is that your car, they get inflation from the manufacturer, and generally that's where people keep their inflation in their cars. But the load capacity of your tires on your car mean you've got about a 20 to 30% margin. You know, and that's the way the vehicle's designed. The margin on RVs is 0 to 10%. You're lucky if you got a 10% margin. So yeah, the only way to know, you can't just eyeball it and say, oh, that doesn't weigh too much. Dave, I bet that board of tools behind you is 150 pounds of wrenches and screws and stuff like that.
At least.
Yeah. And it'd be, oh, I just want the set of wrenches this week because I'm going to do something. Yeah, weight's a killer.
Yeah, it is.
Let me show you something here, and I've got a question. This was in today's issue of RV Travel, an accident. But when I saw this, I thought, did a tire blow? What might when a tire blows on a trailer, like back there? What do you feel? I'm a motorhome guy, so do you feel it? And will this happen? What happens?
Usually, I've never had it happen to me. And I used to tow a 26-foot box trailer with a race car in it across the country, back when I was having fun. But the thing is that usually, because I think we've all seen the videos of somebody pulling a trailer and all of a sudden the trailer starts swaying, and then the swaying gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And rather than backing off the gas and hitting the brake controller to slow the trailer down, they think they can drive it out of the sway, and pretty soon the sway gets big enough that the trailer goes sideways and it takes the vehicle with it. Because your trailer probably outweighs your tow vehicle.
Yep.
So
in most cases, yeah.
I would bet, Chuck, that did not start with a tire failure. It probably started with excess speed for the unit, started swaying, and the driver, not knowing what to do, lost control, and the trailer flipped over.
Yeah, I've personally seen that happen, traveling down the road, and what it started from was somebody went off the shoulder. So the tire on the passenger side went into the shoulder area, and there was a pretty large size drop off, and they did a quick correction to get back on the road, and then the trailer started going, and like you said, it just kept whipping, and it finally just flipped over. They did not have a weight distribution hitch or an equalizing hitch on it, and so that's something that I personally have. Last 10 years ran a company. We had trucks and trailers, 8,000-pound trailer, and if we didn't have proper weight distribution in that, you get up to a certain speed and that trailer will start to do a little shimming anyway. So that's why getting it weighed, knowing what your tongue weight is, knowing what all your weights are, get that data and just make sure you educate yourself.
But Chuck, to your basic question, I think if you have a failure on a trailer, now there's a structural failure of the tire, that's unlikely to cause the trailer to flip over.
Would you feel it though? I mean, as you're driving, are you gonna?
You might feel it. Although I was at a campground one day and I happened to be near the entrance, and I hear this screeching sound coming, and it went on for a long time, not a minute, but it was 30-40 seconds of this screeching, and a pickup truck pulled in, pulling a trailer on a wheel. He obviously didn't know that he not only failed the tire, but it had been failed long enough to, disintegrate the tire, and he just pulled in. So.
Boy, he's got a problem, doesn't he, now after that? His wheel's going to be damaged, and
his axle. Yeah.
He's going to need to get towed. In this day and age. I want to show you something. You guys were talking earlier about technicians. We had that question, and Wall Street Journal ran a story about a month ago about the shortage of auto technicians today. They're having trouble getting auto technicians. They just can't find them. And I know that some of those guys that work on RV dealerships, they're not making very good money, and generally a lot less. And I was walking around a little town here, near me a couple days ago, and look what I saw. Check this out.
Yep.
Hey, if you can make $20 washing dishes and get a free meal, or make $16 an hour working an RV tech somewhere in the Midwest, where which I've seen, that's part of the reason that it's tough to find somebody to work on your RV.
Well, and the biggest problem that I've seen, and I know a lot of dealerships, and I do a lot of shows and talk with the manufacturers, is 2008 through 2010, was horrible for the RV industry. It basically shut everybody down. There was virtually no sales, and a lot of dealerships had to let their technicians go. Nobody could afford to buy, nobody could afford to fix, nobody could afford $5 gas. So when that happens, the RV industry just shuts down. Well, then all of a sudden it comes back at twice the size. 2022, they sold 600,000 RVs. They're going to do 300,000 this year, which has always been a great year. So all these dealerships that had to let these technicians go, they went somewhere else. They went to the diesel market. They went to the wind farms that's big in the Midwest here. There were other industries that are going to stay up here. And then when the RV industry came back twice as high as it was before, these guys are going, I'm not going back there. You're going to do this to me again. I'm going to go to some place that's a lot more stable. So, RVIA last year, they did a big campaign that said, we trained 1,000 technicians this year. It's like, but you sold 600,000 RVs. I know of a dealership that has almost 200 service bays, and they've advertised that for years. They got 75 technicians. So it doesn't matter how many service bays you have. That's the hard thing, is getting these people to want to come back into an industry that could dip, at any given time.
And it does. And I think that when I look at an RV technician and I look at, what they need to know, they have to, when I'm at home here and my plumbing goes out, I call a plumber. When I have an electrical problem, I call an electrician. They have to wear all these hats. And I know electricity, for one thing, is so odd in RVs compared to home. A home electrician, the guy who's used to, he may not even know. But these guys out there that have hardly any training, and you go in there and you're paying $180 an hour. How long is it going to take these guys to figure out what's going on? But that I'm going off on another subject. So forget.
Well, Chuck, one observation: your house, your stick home, was built to code. There are codes for plumbing, codes for electricity. There is no code for how the plumbing is done in an RV or how the electrics run in the RV. So you're asked to go in and fix something. I'm pretty handy with mechanical stuff. I do my own repairs, and I'm amazed at how bad some of the stuff is. I've got bare electric wires. The copper part is bare in my RV. They need to go through a panel. Did they use a hole saw? No, they hit it with a hammer and bashed their way through the OSB that was the wall.
We were working on a fifth wheel toy hauler, and the owner was an electrician, so he was bonded, certified electrician, and he was having a smell coming from under the countertop, and it was one of those cheater vents, we call them, that goes up, and since it can't go through the countertop and get to the roof, they put a vacuum siphon on the top of it, and those go bad. And so to get to it, we had to take off this piece, and the panel looked like they'd taken a hatchet through to get the wiring through there, and all this wiring was exposed. And the owner, a friend of mine, he looks at us as we were doing this and working on it for him. He goes, well, that's not the code, thinking in his residential. Yeah. And I just looked at him. I said, there is no code, RVIA. And just to, back it up a little bit, RVIA has some codes that they've put in, but they go once a year to inspect the RVs, and it's nowhere near what the housing industry has. And he just looked at it, he goes, well, you can't do that. And it's like, and that's, to me, one of the biggest problems is when people are looking to buy an RV, they don't approach it the same way they do looking at a house. You know, you go in and you get an inspector and you look at everything, the cabinet pulls, the carpeting, all the stuff, and you walk into an RV and you fall in love with the floor plan and you don't ask those questions. And I asked him, I said, so when you were buying this, you know, did you open the cabinet underneath and look at the wiring? He goes, no. Why not? Well, I just assumed. Well, you can't. You can't. You know, it was there when you bought it. You know, and he's like, wow. And that's a big part of the education, in my opinion, that people really need to get an inspector. You know, I mean, how many people buy an RV without ever having it inspected? They just assume. You never
They trust that the industries knows what they're doing, just like the car industry knows what it's doing, and the housing industry knows they just trust that it's that way because that's the best way. No, it's the cheapest way, and whatever. But they listen. An RV is such an emotional purchase. It is. You don't buy an RV because it's, you know, it moves around. You buy it because it's this way to go have this magical experiences and have them over and over, traveling around, doing road trips, camping by a lake, having campfires. That's what people are thinking about. They're dreaming about that.
Yep.
So
this
people fall in love with it.
Yep. Electric usage difference when you plug a gas RV into 110 versus a diesel motorhome. I don't think there's no real difference between gas and diesel when it comes to plugging in electrical. I mean, the difference you'd find is most of your diesel pushers are going to be 50 amp service versus 30 amp in gas, but not all. So, but 4 house, 2 chassis diesel. So, basically what's happening when you plug into a Shoreline Power, you've got a 120 volt comes into your distribution center, and it goes to a converter, whether it's an inverter charger or a converter. It charges your house batteries. So your 4 house batteries are getting a charge from that converter or that inverter. Some of them do the diesel or do the chassis batteries now as well. But there is no difference between the two as far as the 110 or 120, whatever you want to call it. So,
hey, we're coming up on end of show time. I want to thank our sponsor, Soft Start RV, and this is a summer special. Save $70. We already talked about it earlier, but thank you very much. They helped make this possible. So, and it's a great product. I know that. So, Dave and Mr. Tireman, anything else to say before we sign off?
Check on RV Tire.
We'll see you around.
Yeah.
I want to show you something before we go. I want to show you something. If you go to Thailand, you happen to head to Thailand, and you order a cheeseburger, do you know what you get?
I saw that.
That's what you get. Yeah, that's a cheeseburger. That's in our weird news today. I want to get rid of this, and I want to show you something else here. I want to show you something else. I want to tell you why we like to stay in RVs. Do you know why we like to stay in RVs instead of motels? Because this is a motel and they beat everybody. What do you think about that, Dave?
I've been in that hotel.
Yeah. And, at RV Travel, we're sticklers about grammar, but what do you we have frozen ice.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is something, that is
something. Have you ever had instant ice?
You just add water?
Add water, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's these new devices now, that they're talking about for boondocking, where it pulls the water right out of the air. So you can get water without leaving your desert home. By the way, next Tuesday evening at 6:00, I'm going to be interviewing Curtis Coleman. He was the founder of Our Village, and we'll have the information in the newsletters the next couple of days. and he's running for president of FMCA, the Family Motor Coaching Association. And so he's going to talk about his plans for the association, which is has been struggling in recent years. And finally, I want to tell you that the reason that we call this RV Coffee Talk is look at how our readers RV travel. 79% of them start their day with a cup of coffee. How about that? Thought you'd want to know that. Anyway, that's my way of ending this.
They've always said you can clear a room like nobody else.
Yeah, I noticed that the reviews going down once I started throwing those funny photos out there. Well, anyway, we'll be back here next Saturday. Roger, thank you. Dave, thank you.
Thank you.
Guys are a lot better at this than I am. I'm too scatterbrained, but I try. All right. Anything else?
Oh, thank you.
Nope.
I'm going to end this. So see ya. Okay. Bye-bye.